This is The High Road with author and registered psychotherapist, Dr. Marlene Bizub. Dr. Marlene speaks to the heart of people who need to be lifted up and get out of the muck and mire that often accompanies major life changes, such as divorce or separation. Dr. Marlene will aspire to help parents of divorce to love their children more than they hate their ex, and to learn to take the high road. So please welcome the host of The High Road, Dr. Marlene.
Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening. This is Dr. Sorry, I had a tickle in my throat. Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. Boy, I haven't eaten, so I don't know what caused that, but good morning, George.
Good morning in our time zone, Dr. Marlene.
Yes.
Great to be with you.
Yes, well, good to have you as always. And I'll tell you, there's never a shortage of things to talk about having to do with our area of interest. It just seems like things come up all the time, keeps us in business, probably for as long as we want to be. But it also sometimes just gets a little old because it often feels like we, anyway, are saying the same things over and over. But I have to remind myself there's new people getting divorced all the time. And so I trust that we aren't saying the same things to the same people. But I don't know. There's some people who I feel don't get it when it comes to divorce and getting through it in a peaceful manner. Some people just don't get it. Have you found that?
Absolutely. And some people are so angry and so
Yeah.
hurt that they can't put that down long enough to see the big picture for their children. I've given some thought to what you said about mental health professionals having orders that are
Mm-hmm.
that are difficult or can't be complied with, and what I would do about that. And
Yeah.
I think if you called me and said, "Hey, I've got a case and these two attorneys, and I have an order where the judge gave me a time limit to maybe heal or help this child or this parent," um, I think what I would suggest is that you asked for a conference call with the two attorneys and explain to them the problem and what would solve the problem, and ask if they wouldn't file a stipulated or agreed upon motion to modify the order. Um,
Okay.
and if another alternative would be to ask for a status conference,
Mm-hmm.
um, and you can explain to the judge the concerns you had with the order. And I think the judge would be receptive to that and say, oops, I need to fix that, and would not really have a problem with it. But I think if the attorneys understood the problem and so forth, and you had a conference call with both of them, so neither one felt disadvantaged in any way, that would be the preferred way to go.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a great idea. And I will share with people too that the ones that have been the most problematic for me, or especially this one recently I got where they've got all these arbitrary dates, this will happen by this time and that'll happen by that time. It was the attorneys agreeing, like you said, stipulating. And then, of course, they file that as a stipulation. It becomes an order with the court. But that was actually not a judge. And I can't imagine that a judge would not sign off on their modification of that, because I would think the judge would recognize right off the bat that that might not be appropriate. And I'm not saying it's never appropriate to put a date on something, but I can't imagine a judge reading an order saying this child and this parent will have contact by this date and not thinking that that might not be appropriate.
Right, and I think a judge would realize that and probably correct willingly his or her, if I could say, mistake or
Mhm.
mistaken deadlines that were imposed, maybe arbitrarily.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly it. Is I understand, because I'm not bashing on attorneys either. I understand their need to move things along, move the case along. And you guys have clients who are nudging you, and sometimes it's not nudging you, it's not that kind. It's more like beating you over the head with a stick, saying, make something happen, make something happen. And this work just doesn't go that way.
No, and it takes time, and even to schedule a hearing, a brief hearing,
Mhm.
the court's calendars are such that you're typically not going to get a hearing for maybe a couple of months.
Right. At least. At least. I think most divisions where I practice, it's 3 or 4 months out on hearings. I mean, depending on how long a hearing you need. But yeah, again, all the more reason to have someone like a PCDM on your case, parenting coordinator, decision maker on your case, so that you don't have to wait for a court date. I don't know why more people don't utilize that option.
I don't either, because it is an excellent means to resolve. I don't want to lessen the severity of it, but if I could say minor issues, um, and avoid going back to court over minor issues. So I think that's particularly helpful for people who are locked into their anger and
Mm.
frustration and so forth, and so they have a resource that is an alternative to litigation.
Mm-hmm. And I'm usually much quicker, any of us, not just me, any of us who serve as PCDMs are much quicker than the judge. I mean, you're going to have an answer pretty quickly, within a week, I would say, rather than even if it's 2 months. And that's like the shortest time I have witnessed lately of getting a hearing is 2 months. Like I said, many divisions are more around 3 to 4 months for a hearing, and we can do it in a week. And I might say, and I hope no one in the legal system takes offense to this, but I do believe that a mental health professional is often better equipped than the judge, with all due respect to the judge. But we're better equipped to say when it's appropriate for something to happen or to move forward.
I think most judges would be in agreement with that, really.
Hmm. I
And
do too.
yeah, I don't think that's far fetched by any matter of means.
No, no, it sounds bad. It sounds arrogant, but I'm just stating a fact. They are legal experts for sure. And, well qualified and esteemed and all of that. But I don't know that they can really say when this kid who they've never met and will never meet is going to be ready to meet with the parent. And while we're on that, this is a great segue into something I want to talk about today. Is it is typically not the kids who aren't ready. I mean, they might not be ready to have contact with that parent, but the person who hasn't gotten ready or made the situation right for the child to feel ready is the parent. I had a conversation with a CLR less than an hour ago about how this dad won't own his stuff. He will not own his stuff. He makes excuses, he minimizes, and these two girls are just not having it. And they're like, no, until I feel like you understand what you did, that you understand the effect it had on us, et cetera, et cetera. We don't feel comfortable seeing you without Dr. Marlene here. And that's
And
sad. I'm sorry, go ahead.
how old are those girls?
These girls are 11 and 17, or she might be 12, but 12 and, the 17-year-old's mature, but the 12-year-old, 11-year-old, whatever she is right now, feels just as strongly, if not more so.
That's interesting, because I I just think that if it comes to us, I want this to sound ominous. We're coming for you. And we're
Right.
going to try to show that you're being irresponsible,
Mhm.
that any little mistake you made, or if you were late, that it's a pattern, and it's poor parenting, and there needs to be some adjustment in the parenting time. I mean, we're coming for you if
Oh,
we
yeah.
end up in
Oh,
court.
yeah. Yeah, no, I know that only too well. But that's why I think it's important too that mental health professionals have input on these orders, because it doesn't help anybody if we're doing things that are inappropriate because the kids aren't ready because the parent hasn't owned their stuff. They aren't ready. They've not made the children ready. And you can tell me what you think. I know you're not a mental health professional, but I think it is the job and responsibility of the parent to help make the child feel ready.
Well, I don't think there's any question about it. I think that's just an extension of the parent giving the child permission to love the other parent.
Yes. Yes. Yep. And the parents place way too much responsibility, in my opinion, on the professionals instead of just doing the job. It's like, fix this, make this happen. I mean, I know you get it too. They're telling you to make it happen, they're telling me to fix it, whatever. And it just doesn't work that way. It's like, you're the one who has to do the work. You're the one who has to convince your child that you're going to be safe, that they're going to be comfortable in your care, and that they don't have anything to worry about. They've got to do that. I can't convince them of that.
No, and how do you feel about the child having, I guess, permission to call the absentee parent if they feel uncomfortable or the need to do so, and not have it turn into a constant hanging on the phone with the other parent? How is that best handled, Dr. Marlene?
Well, I'll tell you what I do. And it's part of the reason I have 11 things on my schedule for today. And I'm not suggesting that my colleagues overwork themselves. But what I do is I take that other parent out of the equation, or there's two things I do. So let me start with that one. I take the other parent out of the equation. I tell these kids I'm not always, and of course, it depends on their age. I'm not always going to be available. I'm not always going to be able to call you right back. But today, for example, I have two kids and they're teenagers that I've scheduled phone conferences with. I'm giving each of them a half hour, but let's talk it through before you start calling the other parent, because all that does is increase the conflict between the parents. And if you're going to take on doing this kind of work, you have to be in the trenches. You have to be ready to respond to parents and kids alike. And you know it's not going to go well if they call the other parent. But if they call me and I can talk them through it, or contact the parents and work with the parents to get through whatever the issue is, that's much better than just adding to the conflict by calling the other parent, and then the parent they're with says, you have no right to take their phone call and interfere with my parenting time. So that's the first thing I do, is I just try to insert myself and remove them, because as I've said many times before, I can tell the other parent the same thing that you tell them, not you, the attorney, but the parent tells them. And they're going to receive it completely differently because it's coming from me, not the other parent. So there's that. And then the other thing I do, and I'll let you comment on that, but let me tell you the other thing I do, and then you can tell me what you think about all of it, is I talk with the parents and we have an agreement that they can do that. And we put some parameters around it. It can't be excessive, but if they, like they can't hang on the phone, like you said, with the other parent. And I may or may not allow the other parent to come get them. If it involves a safety issue, then I will ask the parents to allow the other parent to come get them. If mom is drunk and can't wake up and they feel unsafe and they call dad, you bet I'm going to let dad come get them, because the alternative is call the police. And we don't want that, you know. So I don't
No,
know.
that
That's what I do.
I think that that really inflames things to call the police,
Yes.
and
Oh,
it's kind of
yes.
like the contempt citation.
Hmm.
It often does more harm than good. And so
Yes.
I think the ability, the resource, you're being a resource for the child is so important.
Hmm.
Uh, and because we don't have the opportunity to work with children, and we're not really
Hmm.
qualified to work with children.
Hmm.
Um, and so we maintain such a delicate thread with our clients of having them feel like they can trust us. We're on their side. We're going to advocate for them. They'll use the word fight. Will you fight for me?
Right.
Uh, and off we go. So and we can and we will if that's what the client insists. But in the long term, uh, it's unfortunate when the judge has to set the parameters in a court order of how the parents are going to behave. But it's better than having them at each other all the time. It's not
Right.
the most ideal, but it's better than constant fighting and bickering over the heads of the children.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And I'll tell you an added benefit to me letting these kids call me. I teach them things in the process. I teach them skills for how to deal with a difficult parent. So that's going to serve them well throughout their life, to learn what to do in a difficult situation. I'll make suggestions that they say this or write out their feelings or do that, whatever it may be based on this situation. But I teach them some problem solving skills, some conflict resolution skills, all that kind of stuff, and how to approach someone like a parent. Because one of the things I convey to kids, and I really impart this upon them, is you have to be polite, you have to be respectful. Where we have problems is we have these kids that want to just be totally inappropriate with their parent and be rude and disrespectful. And um, I'm not having that, because all that does is take the focus off of the parent and the issue we're trying to address, and it puts it on the behavior of the child. And once I tell kids that, I mean, if they're old enough to understand that, they get it. They agree. They're like, oh, you're right. You know, because I've got one boy in particular, and like he is just ready to unload on his dad. And when I suggested you can't be rude, he goes, I'm not going to be nice. And I said, okay, hear me out. If you're rude, and then I explain what I just said, we're going to take the focus off of this issue with dad and put it on you and your behavior. And he's like, oh, okay, I get it. I mean, he had to think about it for a minute. And that's my job, is to explain this stuff to kids. But to me, that's really a better solution, to teach these kids something in the process than just be a referee between the parents.
Well, I think empowering the kids when they're old enough with those types of skills um, creates an alternative to them trying to simply pit one parent against the other. Well,
Mhm.
mom lets me do so and so, dad lets me do so and so. How come I can't at your house? Uh,
Mhm.
and and that's a mess.
Right. Right. And I tell them each parent is the head of their own household, and they get to make the rules for that household. And they might be different. But we've talked about this before. Kids get used to different rules in different places. They know when you go in the library at school, you have to be quiet. They know on the playground, it's the opposite, that they learn how you behave in different places and different environments. At church, you act a certain way. At a birthday party, you might act another way. At a sporting event, you're going to act a different way. They learn that. And so they can learn and understand that mom's house is different than dad's house, and the rules are different, and the expected conduct is different. Now, do I like parents who have similar households? Yes, I do. But we can't always maintain that. And I totally missed my cue. It is time to take a break. I apologize. We'll be back. But this is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. We'll be right back.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals.
Welcome back. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. Good discussion about how to handle those kinds of issues and conflicts between parents and working through the children. And I presume that you support working with the children in the manner that I do to teach them how to deal with their parents, because I'm not always going to be here, but
Well, absolutely. And I think when the children are old enough and have some of those skill sets available to them, they have the potential to actually minimize the parental conflict.
yes, yes, excellent point, because they do. And I tell them that too, just like explaining if you're rude, you're going to lose the message. You know, I tell them you have the ability to make this better or worse. And some kids will seize that opportunity to make the conflict worse. But by and large, most kids want less conflict. They don't want to. They might in the moment think it's fun to poke the bear, but typically they typically want a peaceful household too, and peaceful parents. They don't want parents constantly bickering and fighting.
Yeah, and we really, the day-to-day troubles that come up and the response time and so forth that we offer, and the remedies that we offer are often inflammatory. I'm
Yeah.
sorry to say that, but
Yeah.
that's the reality of it.
Yes. And I am so glad that you admit that and that people hear that. No, really, because that's an attorney's job. And sometimes when I suggest that, no, your attorney is probably not going to, really want, not that attorneys don't want to cooperate, but they're not going to give much because they're looking out for you. I think sometimes clients think, no, I'm just blaming the attorney, but that is your job. I'm not blaming them. It's just your job. It's your role.
Yeah, it is, and we are combative. We are,
Yes.
and it's just the reality of the thing. And if we go to court, we're going to do our best to make the other party look bad
Right.
in terms of their parenting.
Yes.
And so that, as I say, unfortunately, is often inflammatory.
Yes. Yes. And that's why this was a really useful discussion. However, I do want to get to the identified topic for today's show, and that is because it is upon us, and that is times when it's appropriate to change the schedule for a period of time, the parenting time schedule, such as summer. And like I said, that's upon us. It's already here. But during this summer is a prime example of when it's appropriate to change the schedule. Kids don't have school, parents are taking vacations. We typically do allow 2 weeks, sometimes a week, but it's usually two, for each parent to have the kids uninterrupted in case they want to take a vacation. And that's one, I'm just going to start there. I'm getting a lot of pushback right now from some parents about not making up that time. And I try to explain, you're both going to get 2 weeks uninterrupted. And so, how would we even go about making up that time? So, first of all, we don't make up that time, right?
Right. And parents need to be free from the fear of letting the children go, or if I could say it that way, or
Yes.
supporting the children spending 2 weeks uninterrupted with the other parent.
Mhm.
Um, and I I see the anger and the fear in people all the time. They're afraid that their child support is going to be modified.
Mhm.
Uh, they're afraid that it's going to be used against them, that they didn't want the children for that period of time. And those things are not true. The judges understand that people are afraid uh, and angry. Nevertheless, they have children that have to be raised.
Right, right. Yep. And it's often a time, summer and other breaks like that from school is often a time to try a different schedule. Like if you're doing a 5225, and I'll explain for the audience's benefit what that is, that one parent has Monday and Tuesday every week, the other parent has Wednesday and Thursday every week. And then we alternate Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, essentially the weekend. So they each have 2 days during the week and alternate the weekend. This is a good time. Summer is a good time to switch to a week on, week off. Or maybe during the school year, one parent lives far enough away that they can't have them during the school week. But on the weekend, they can because they don't have to. I don't mean weekend, I'm sorry. Well, yes, on the weekend too, but summer, they can because they don't have to worry about getting them to school. So this might be the only time that some parents can do something like week on, week off. But summer is a great time to try those other schedules. And it's also a good time to explore. And that's why I say try, explore and see if a different schedule works better for your kids.
The schedule issue is, I guess, a little sensitive. If it's going to be a long-term thing, then probably we want to see a stipulation or an agreement filed to that effect. That's
Yes,
just we want it down on paper. That's kind of our, or it used to be paper. Maybe now it's megabytes of something, but
right.
we want it. We want it down. If it's going to be a long-term situation, we would like to see a stipulation to that effect.
Right, right. And that was the next thing I was going to mention. And of course, being the attorney, you beat me to it. But yes, make sure no, but make sure if you're going to stay with that, then that you file that agreement with the court. My question for you is, do you feel parents need to do it if they know it's temporary? If they agree for the summer, let's do week on, week off, but their intent is to go back to whatever they were doing before, especially like I mentioned, in a scenario where a parent really can't have time during the week when the kids are in school. If they modify it temporarily, do we need to file that, or what's your thought?
I think it depends on the amount of time. If the amount of time is really relatively unchanged
Mhm,
by week on, week off, or 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, something like that in the summer,
mhm.
uh, probably not, but there should be some memorialization of the agreement, an email, something like that, to memorialize what the agreement of the parties is, and that would be, I think, appropriate even for a limited time adjustment such as the summer.
Okay. Yeah, because couldn't you say for the summer we're doing this, the plan is or expectation or whatever is that we return in the fall to this?
Yes, and I
Yeah.
think again we have to deal with the fear that parents have that they're going
Yes.
to somehow forfeit position or standing or time, and if we can calm those fears to some extent,
Mhm.
people tend to be a little more rational, if I could put it that way.
Right. Well, and you know what often helps a lot, and it's typically expected and typically in the parenting time order, is that um, the other parent will have phone contact with the children. And usually in this day and age, we do video calls. It's not just a phone call, but a video chat. And that often will ease the other parent's concern because they can see the kids are just fine, you know?
Yeah, and I see the phone thing is really appropriate because
Mhm.
everybody has phones
Yeah.
nowadays, and
Yes.
uh,
Yes.
so it's an excellent alternative to fighting about it. But again, having some memorialization, even on a temporary basis, I think is important. I don't think it necessarily requires a stipulation with the court, but some sort of memorialization is appropriate, such as an email.
Yes. Yes. Even anything in writing helps.
That's yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when excuse me, when I started to practice, I read a book about starting one's own law practice, and it said, consider yourself in the stationery business. You have to send letters about everything. And so for today, I think that's switched maybe over to email.
Yes. Yes. But to document it is what's really important and crucial.
Yes. And again, it doesn't take a lot. Um, so if somebody gets their nose out of joint and say, well, I want to renege on that agreement, then we have a problem. Then it comes to me. and
Right. Right. Yes. But I would say summer is the time when we get the most schedule changes just because of the vacation factor and things like that. And I will say, I'll forewarn parents who haven't gone through this yet that it can get complicated because one parent might have their vacation time that encompasses the, let's say, 4th of July, but that holiday belongs to the other parent that year. And so you have to take all those things into consideration. And this is mostly what I deal with this time of year is parents haven't thought it through. And they say, well, I just had to give you my vacation time by May 1st or June 1st. That's fine, but it's my holiday and your vacation encompasses my holiday. And so it does get complicated.
Yes, and again, memories fade, and there's
Hmm.
selective perception, selective retention. So again, just a little memorialization in an email can avoid a lot of problems.
Yes, yes. And something I do too, and I already mentioned this in the last segment, talking about parents' conflict and the kids learning how to handle that on their end. The same, I think, is true with things like vacation time and holidays and all of that. Now, you've got an order, you're both entitled to 2 weeks of vacation, okay? But talk to your kids. If your kids say, I would prefer to be away from the other parent for only 1 week at a time, honor that. Try to structure your vacation. And if you can't, you can't. But I have parents who are gone maybe 8, 9 days, maybe 10, but they want to take the whole 2 weeks. Well, the kids get back on day 9, let's say, and they haven't seen the other parent for 9 days, and they don't want to wait 5 more days. They'd like to go see the other parent. Honor your kids' wishes and needs. It's not just their wishes, it's their needs. If they have a need to see the other parent more often or sooner, then I think we should honor that and not be so rigid and strict with each other.
I think one thing I would change about what I said is if you have high conflict parents. If you
Right.
have high conflict parents, then a stipulation is appropriate.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Because they've got to have an order to stick to.
Right, and
Yeah.
parameters which are outlined in the order and so forth. And so if one changes their mind or gets their nose out of joint, well, wait a minute, we've got a court order that resolves some of
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
typically. And so if we have high conflict parents, then a stipulation I think is called for.
Yes. Yes. Yep. Well, I want to go back to talking about parents. And of course, I do because I'm the mental health professional. But parents having an inability to acknowledge what they've done to their children. And George, I just see it so much. I'm sure you do too, where it all becomes the fault of the other parent. And all I can say is it takes two to fight. So it can't be all the other parent's fault. And that other parent may be really difficult to deal with. But I have parents who just can't handle. I'll just give you a good example. Two girls telling their dad some things that he has done that have been harmful to them. It's just emotionally difficult for them. And he was just in complete denial. Oh, that didn't happen. I don't remember it happening that way. And so, I try to use this perception is reality mantra that I often use with parents because it doesn't matter what's true, not true, fact, not fact. If your kids believe it and remember it that way, it's real in its consequences. So the parent can say, I didn't do it, but if the kid feels you did, yeah, go ahead. Are you going to comment?
No, I just think that you are so much better equipped to deal with that than coming to the lawyer's office to deal
Yeah.
with the children being upset. Uh,
Yes.
we just
Well,
don't have the means to do that you have available to you.
yes. And I guess my question along that line would be, and we can talk about it when we come back. We're coming up on another break here before long. But do you, as an attorney, when the client comes to you and complains, do you question, have you done your part? Have you, and I'm sure you do, but I'd like to just hear a little bit about what that looks like on your end, because we don't have the privilege of seeing what conversations take place in your office. So I'll let you think about that for a minute. I don't want to just put you on the spot, but you've got a minute or two to think about it. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. We'll be right back.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant, like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. Yeah, it feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. Boy, everything is catching me off guard today, isn't it? I didn't have my little timer set again yet. But anyway, before we went to break, George, we were talking about when parents don't own their stuff, but then they go in my office and don't acknowledge their contribution to the problem with the kids. And then they come into your office and they just complain, Dr. Marlene's not making things happen quickly enough. And I know you are good about contacting me or other mental health professionals and discussing it with us. But I am curious, and for the benefit of our audience, how do you handle that in your office with your client? I mean, do you question them like, what's your role in this? Or, how do you handle it?
Well, I think we have to be very delicate about it. We have that delicate balance between having the client reform their own behaviors and feel like they trust us and we're on their side. But what I would typically do is point out, you can't control your ex. You can control how you respond to your ex, and to try to make sure they have some options and some skills in that regard. But here again, those skills typically come, I think, better from a mental health professional.
Yes.
But we certainly do challenge, I use that word gently, our clients' behavior and role in a conflict. And we try to explore some options on how to deal with the conflict. And so I don't think most attorneys immediately jump to, let me file a motion, let me get a hearing date. I think
Right.
most attorneys will say, you can't control your ex's behavior, but you can control how you respond to it,
Right.
and whether you engage in any behaviors which are triggers for conflict. And so I think we gently challenge our clients in that regard to say, hey, how is your behavior in this matter? But we have to be very gentle about it.
Well, I know you do. I know you do. Um, but what I love, love, love about what you said, I mean, it's just music to my ears to hear you say that you point out to them, because I do as well, that you can't change how the other person is going to act. You can only change your response to them. And I can't tell you how many parents, I'm sure you know, how many parents come in and they are wanting me to fix the other person or change the other person. And certainly it's my job to help affect changes with both parents. But can I make a parent act a certain way? No. But what I can help your client with is how he or she reacts to that other parent. I might try to change the other parent, but there's no guarantee. And so, the best lesson that you and I can teach a parent in a situation that's high conflict is how to change their behavior, their reaction to that parent, rather than just setting out to change the behavior of that parent.
Well, and I think one thing you said that I see or saw fairly consistently is my client has the attitude of, I'm fine, fix him or her.
Right, right.
And
Yes.
that's just rarely the case. I mean, there are appropriate cases where that's actually true, in cases of abuse or substance abuse and things like that. But rarely in the mainstream of cases, that's rarely the case that one party is completely at fault and completely responsible for agitating and so forth.
Right, right. And I have yet to see the case where it was all one. It's just not. It might be even 90%, but it's never. I have yet to see a case that it was totally 100% one person's fault.
Yeah, the only exception that I would offer to that is in cases of abuse, and
True.
in some abusive cases, it is fairly possible for it to be, certainly the majority of responsibility would lie with one person, and when we have those cases, we typically are going to end up in court.
Yes, yes. And that's a different situation. I mean, that becomes a protective issue for the other parent and the children, because there's plenty of research showing that as much, if not more, damage is done by children observing domestic violence than being the recipient of child abuse. It could be just as or more harmful to witness your one parent beating up on your other parent, you
Yeah,
know?
that's tragic, and we have to take steps to protect the children from that. Um, I don't know what the track record is for abusive parents to reform their behavior once they get
Hmm.
into a divorce situation. Maybe with luck and with work with attorneys and mental health professionals, possibly that person would reform their behavior, not be as combative and challenging. We hope for that, but it's a tough case when you have somebody who's been abusive like that, and the mistrust is just off the charts.
Yes, yes, for sure. One other burning question I have that came to mind a few minutes ago, and I know the answer for you, but I want you to just speak to the issue. Um, are there attorneys who just take what their client says as fact? And I get the call and they aren't saying, "Hey, can you tell me what happened?" They call as though they were in the room and they know what happened. And anyway, you get the point, you get the question. Um, can you speak to that? And what is it that causes some attorneys to just believe everything their client says?
Well, one thing I would offer is lack of experience.
Okay,
Um, I think
okay.
experience would teach an attorney that their client is not all righteous and the other party is all evil.
Yeah.
We tend to want to, early on in our career, I think we want to jump in and be the champion of our client and so forth, and that's appropriate throughout a career, but it does take some skill and I think experience to learn that the client wants you to see them as angelic and the other party as all evil, and
Yes.
that's very, very, very rarely the case, and we
Right.
understand that, and again, we have to try to educate the client on what is realistic for their expectations, what is realistic in terms of what they can do to control or lack of control of the
Hmm.
situation. But yeah,
Hmm.
we certainly have attorneys who want to take everything their client says at face value. That's the other side of the coin of the client who says just whatever my attorney wants is fine with me.
Right, right. That's just as bad. Yes. But it just still astounds me when I get a call. And you're right. Now that I think about it, it's usually immature or inexperienced attorneys, immature in their practice, let's say. Um, I'm not saying they're like that as a person,
But they
but
might be.
certainly in yes, they may be. They may be. That may be part of the problem. But they call me and tell me what happened, and it's a situation I was involved in. And I'm like, "Were you going to ask me to tell you what really happened in my office, or are you just going to take your client's word for it?" And so I'm just still astounded. I get being an advocate for your client, but for heaven's sake, you have to consider, and I'm sure you're going to agree, you've got to consider that what your client tells you may not be the 100% truth.
No, they have to have some perspective.
Yes, yes. And I appreciate that attorney who can challenge their client and at least call me with, "Hey, can you tell me what happened?" Not, "Hey, my client, blah, blah, blah," or the
Right,
other parent,
right.
blah, 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 or you, meaning me, blah, blah, blah. You get the idea. Yeah. All right.
I
Well,
do.
thank you, George. Yeah, you live it far too often, huh? We both do. Thank you for being here. And we'll do this again next week, of course. But this is Dr. Marlene and George, and you've been watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. We'll see you next week.
Tune in to The High Road with host Dr. Marlene and gain insight into how to rise above tough circumstances and learn the skills that will help you take the high road in your life, no matter what challenges might come your way, on the next episode of The High Road.